including podcasts and stuff like that that I sent out before to the people. So I'm taking something that I thought I was scratching the surface on in 48 hours into 45 minutes. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I think if I give you a few key points of what that thing is, why you need it, how you lost it, how you can get it back, and what to look for in your daily life, I think that's at least going to start you in the right direction. How do you know you don't have it? What does it feel like when you don't have it? I've always said this one thing, and it's provoked, or it's been provocatively perceived by some people. If you, most people think, well, I want to feel like a man, so then I can go and meet some women. And I've always said, are you sure that's the strongest drive in your life, to really want to meet women? I think I beg to differ. I think there's a stronger drive, a much more fundamental drive that women have. If you're a man, you want to feel like what? Come on, can't be that hard. You want to feel like a goddamn man. That's what you want to feel like. That's why people go and want to meet women. Oh, I have this hottie in my arm. I must be worth something. Or I can brag about it on, what they call those things, lay reports, bragging rights, kiss and tell. Why would you want to do that? Who are you trying to impress? Obviously not women, because they're not going to be impressed. They may think you're a bad boy and might be attractive. A lot of them are going to think you're a player and it's not attractive. But who are you going to impress with that? Johnny Saporna, my buddy, he always says this one thing. He says, men are seeking the approval of other men. That's not a gay thing. It's just what is. But why would you even seek approval? If you seek an approval, if you're seeking all these things, that's what we call a deficiency need in psychology. It's a hole. It's a vacuum. It's what I call the hole in the heart. Oh, they're going to hate me for touching the mic here. But if you're trying to fill a void, a need, then that's indicative of what? Low self-esteem. Thank you. And if you don't have it, nothing else matters. I used to do these funny things. I would meet women, and it was immediately, of course, a lot of them I showed how to have their first orgasm. It was great, you know. They'll be real thankful for that. They'll stick with you forever, unless you screw it up. Low self-esteem, though, can screw that up real quick. And I used to do this pattern, and I somehow turned total nymphomaniacs, or at least nymphomaniacs with me, into eventually asexual women. After I showed them how to have an orgasm, after a few months down the relationship, all of a sudden, I managed to create problems in the relationship. How? Well, they felt pressured sexually. It would happen like this. One night we wouldn't have sex for whatever reason. And it was like, okay, no problem. We can have that. Because I took it as rejection. Because why? Low self-esteem. And of course, then I was like, okay, maybe. And then I would create subtle pressures, which made her not want to have sex the second night, right? Even though the sex was good, that wasn't the problem. But it was me not knowing how to ask for it properly and creating subtle pressures because I was coming from low self-esteem. I was taking this one night in 100 as a sign of rejection, fundamental rejection. That's how messed up my self-esteem was. Had nothing to do with my successes or having many women I laid. Had nothing to do with that, nothing. Because I was filtering all evidence to the contrary out of the picture. And so will you if you have low self-esteem. You will not be able to see what this is all about. You'll take every little thing as a sign of, oh, well, it must be me. Must be something wrong with me. And then I managed to create more pressures, but I didn't know how to ask aright. I didn't know how to initiate sex easily unless she would. And I was like, well, I can't ask for it. She always wanted sex with me. She'd always started. How do I do it now? It's weird. Really weird. And I managed to turn relationship after relationship asexual until I knew nothing better than leaving the relationship. And that's tragic if you ever get to that point. I mean, I'm not saying I did this always in every relationship, but I did it more often than I care to admit. And that's very indicative of low self-esteem. And it's typical for the kind of problems that start spiraling out of control. One thing feeds on another, and eventually you realize, oh my God, I'm running out of options here. Because the one thing that you need, the one thing that everything rests on, the foundation, the very foundation of everything in your life, may not be there. Or it may be compromised. It may have cracks in it. It may have never been properly built. How do you know you don't have good self-esteem? How do you know that? Ever had the feeling, well, she's out of my league? You can prop yourself up with state management, also known as NLP. But that's like taking a toothbrush to do high colonics. It's like whiteout on the computer screen. It's wonderful, and it can do a lot. But not if your self-esteem is fundamentally low. It will never prop that up. It might prop it up for a few minutes or a few hours, but then it's going to go right back down. If you've ever been to one of those motivational seminars, yes, I can, I'm 10 feet tall. And tomorrow you're like, oh, well, I'm still 8 feet tall or so, and I'm pretty sure I can do it, yes. And then one day later you're like, maybe 7 feet tall, and I think I can probably try to do it. And then 3 days later you're probably like, oh, I'm 4 feet tall. I was actually 6 before, but now I'm 4. Because it should have worked for me, and now it doesn't, and now I'm feeling worse than I did before. That's state management. That's what happens when you're trying to correct the fundamental problem with contextual solutions, semi-solutions. There's no foundation there. And how do you know you don't have good self-esteem? Well, ever felt like, oh, what's the use, you know? Or ever said to yourself, if I approach her, you know, she might reject me? And you already went through the whole movie in your head, how she's going to reject you. Ever had that? Who's ever had that? Oh, I'm the only one? No, there's a few. Okay. Well, that's what happens, though, when you don't have it. Ever felt like low in motivation? Where you felt like, oh, I want to distract myself from certain issues? Or I need to motivate myself that I can do this thing. And then you didn't do it? You ever feel like, oh, well, you know, I'm working in this dead-end job. Job is an acronym for just above broke, what they call a wage slave. And I want to get my own business, but I can't do it in this economy. You know, my dad tried to do it and he failed, and I know my uncle tried to do it and he failed, and yeah, it can't be done really, I shouldn't. And then you feel better because the anxiety recedes.